Fausty time. How did that work? Did you like that?
Wonderful.
This is weird because I'm on the opposite end. I'm not used to being on the opposite end. And Liam's in his limousine, apparently, about to be taken to a party.
Yes. I'd love to be with you all tonight, but I'm a phoning in. I'm afraid I'm having to do a phone in instead of being in the studio, because now with COVID is lockdown is over. I'm a busy boy. I've got things to be doing. And
he's been giving me this excuse all week. I don't think he's doing anything.
I had a very important meeting with our friend Lady Poison, actually, Chris.
That
As you
true.
well know, it was all very important stuff. Top secret magical stuff for the Thoth Witchcraft Patreon. I mean, if that's not important, I don't know what is.
Well, there is that. I'll let you have that, but that doesn't fulfill all the other times that's been going on for the last couple of weeks, okay, where the answer is always, "I'm busy."
Oh, so what's tonight's show then, Mr. Chris?
I don't know. You said something about liars and thieves and tramps and thieves or something. I don't know. I trust you for this stuff.
It's supposed to be liars, thieves, and conntrepreneurs. How do you know who to trust in the magical community?
I ask Liam and then do the opposite.
Right. So I am a reliable source of information.
Yeah. To find the ones to not go to.
Right. Okay. So, Chris, do you know what a conntrepreneur is?
Well, I'm assuming it's a con man that finds his way of taking advantage of people to be successful.
It's a very specific type of con man. I learned this very recently, right, from a video I watched all about conntrepreneurs, because I thought that's a fascinating word. I wonder if it means what I think it means. And as it turns out, it means exactly what I thought it meant. Unfortunately, I didn't come up with it. Some other bastard came up with it, and I'm really angry.
I've heard it before.
Yeah, I thought, I wish I'd invented that word, because I like to invent words and phrases and the like. So, all of these entrepreneurs that are out there that make a lot of money from making successful businesses and that. But there's a lot of conntrepreneurs out there. So conntrepreneurs are con artists that pretend they're entrepreneurs and successful business people, so they can sell you a course which will teach you how to be as successful as they are. So will you find if you type business, learn business, make millions in a year, all that sort of stuff, get rich quick in the YouTube, you'll find all of these videos of people that are claiming to be super successful, and then they're trying to sell you a course for thousands and thousands of pounds often. And then what they'll do is they'll take your money and give you a bunch of video courses, but they all use the same formulas. And I was thinking, well, that's in the business world, but there must be that kind of people, those people in the magical world as well.
They're called Gaia, aren't they?
What, you mean the channel, the YouTube for enlightened spiritual people? Gaia is like YouTube for enlightened spiritual people, apparently. Although you have to pay for it, unlike YouTube.
Yeah. I'm trying to think, what's the name of that group that actually created that? It's with the crazy woman who mummified herself.
I don't know about a crazy woman that mummified herself.
I was watching a video the other day about one of the leaders of this group. Obviously, it's one of the branches off. It's like, I don't know, it's like the Goddess Love group or something like that, or
and she mummified herself.
They found they almost all got arrested because she had this little cult going on as part of this, and they'd all moved into her house. They all called her mum,
right?
And then she did all these live feed YouTube videos of her, swearing at them and calling them all everything, and then all these like videos of them going on about all the things that go on in the little commune kind of situation. Hi, Jolene. Jolene's come to talk about tiger penises again.
Brilliant. I'm still waiting for that tiger penis to be sent round.
I'm still waiting for Jolene to do a session with us. I think we need to do a session with Jolene. I think it'd be hilarious.
What's it going to be? A tiger penis healing or something?
Maybe. Or we could do a sex magic seance or something.
You know, I've noticed, because you've proved this now, when you're hosting, it's difficult not to be making trouble. Because you always say that I'm rude and I say bad things.
Make any trouble.
And talk about tiger penises and that. But now you're in the host position. You start bringing up things about tiger penises and magical sex and stuff. You know,
I'm blaming Jolene because Jolene's just come up, and then therefore I had to mention it because that's where she walked in last time.
Okay. Right. So,
well, Jolene, Liam actually looks like he's in those weird bait buses and things like that they're doing gay porn, to be quite honest.
What you mean?
So I'm waiting for him to pick up some random stranger.
I know just the videos you're talking about as well. How bad's that? The bait bus.
Wait a minute, the bait bus? But which wasn't there a haunted program that did that too? It wasn't one of the most haunted ones, but they would turn.
Ghost Towns.
Was that it? Where they turned up in a black cab?
Oh, I don't know about that. They turn up on a black cab on Super Nanny US, but that's not really paranormal.
Okay. No, yeah, I'm sure there's a paranormal show.
Derek Acorah's Ghost Towns, I sure, is the one where he turns up in a big like black type like coach and rolls into town and stuff. I think it's that one.
Yeah.
I believe that's the one where there was a big lawsuit that was going on with a Most Haunted. I'm not supposed to say this, but I'm going to fucking say it anyway. There was a big lawsuit that went on with Most Haunted, whereby they got rid of Derek Acorah because he was getting more popular than Yvette Fielding, and the ego wouldn't take it. So her and her husband, and all of their family, which are all part of the Most Haunted team, because it's very incestuous, they were going to sue Derek Acorah, and then what was Living TV, the TV station, said, no, I don't want any of this because we're giving him his own show and that's going to be not good. So then they all dropped the lawsuit. And that is the story of why Derek Acorah had ghost towns and the like. And I'm not really all that up with the paranormal investigation community, but I do know a couple of super little information things. I actually know one of the electricians that used to work on what was it? The Most Haunted Live?
Yeah.
Yeah. And they said they fake pretty much everything. And I was like, I can believe that because being a witch, you get to know a little bit about what is legitimate paranormal, what is a hoax. And watching some of those Most Haunteds, you think this ain't never right. But there we go. I mean, it's kind of relevant because we're talking about liars and thieves and conntrepreneurs. So I suppose the first things we need to talk about are people faking paranormal activity, and then go on to people faking magical abilities like mediums, fake mediums and the like. So where should we start with all that, Chris?
Oh, we're not going to start with the spiritualists, are we?
Well, are the spiritualists fake? I mean, I know that was it the Fox Sisters?
No, I mean the original, the Fox Sisters is what I'm referring to specifically.
Yeah, fakes. Blavatsky is considered a fake, infamous occultist. But then, I mean, it's difficult with that one because she was one of those people that was she pretty much kick-started the Theosophical Society, Theosophy. But she was one of those people that used to do seances and the like, brought a lot of Eastern occultism over to the West. It's her, unfortunately, that we get a lot of these bastardized Eastern concepts, or like the law of free karma, all that sort of bollocks.
Yeah.
But she was dead against summoning the dead, and she said that you should let them to go off and do their own thing, basically dissolve and move on. And I don't know whether she was because she was a serious occultist, mind. I don't know whether she faked the seances because she didn't agree with conjuring up spirits but could still do it, or whether she was just a complete fraud, because she was an occultist. And
she definitely was an occultist.
Yeah, it's one of
at the
those
very
ones
least very well read.
Yeah, it's one of those ones where you can think, well, is she one of those ones that didn't have a lot of good training, so lost the ability as she got older, like a lot of them do? Or is it one of those ones where she's like, I still want to make money from this because there's a hell of a lot of money to be made, but I ain't bothering the spirit, so I'll just fake a bunch of stuff by getting someone to drop letters through the slats in the floorboards upstairs so they fly down in that. We should probably do an episode on Eleanor Petrova Blavatsky, because there's quite a lot of history there.
It might be one I actually have to do some research though, because I don't think I've really done anything about her since my teens.
Well, I'll let
Which was a long time ago.
I've got a copy of Isis Unveiled. That's 2 volumes. Each one's 1,000 pages long. And then I can give you a copy of The Secret Doctrine. There's 2 volumes and also 1,000 pages long. So that's 4,000 pages. Should give you a 4,000 page Victorian-esque essay, because she's very like that. It's very heavy.
She is.
And she does like to bitch him. I think it was Isis Unveiled. She likes to bitch about the scientists and that.
See, I don't think I've ever read Isis Unveiled, actually. I think I've read excerpts, obviously, in other people's work, but the only one I've ever read, I think, was The Sacred Doctrine.
Did you read definitely the whole thing?
Not the whole thing.
Right, I was going to say,
I did the skim reading, where I'm like, I can tolerate about 10 pages at a maximum at any one time.
Yeah.
But I did make a few good attempts in my teens. Back in the early days of what's that?
Sacred texts with all the PDFs.
Sacred texts. That's it. Yeah. That's it. So I think I've read bits of that, but there's only so much of the scrolling down the screen that I can cope with that. And I also don't like how they necessarily break up passages when they're repeat, because obviously, you know, it's all uploaded and it's done as anyway. That's not part. We're off on tangents again, but the early days of sacred texts, I think I did a bit of dipping into Blavatsky at that point. But I haven't since. You know, I'm not big on my occultists. I have to force myself to get interested, because they start to talk shit, and I lose the will to live. I mean, it's easy. Say really cool things.
I mean, I speak to the old fogies, and they say to us, "Oh, it's easy in your day. In your day, you know, you've always had the internet and that." And I understand what they're talking about now, because I remember, like you, when you used to go on Sacred Text and download the PDFs. But I look at the younger generation, where the PDF has got a text-to-speech bloody button. We didn't have that. We had to read our own words. Nowadays, you just download and click the text-to-speech. It reads it for you.
And you only have to press the Control F to actually search the damn thing. Though we couldn't do that back in the day.
We couldn't do that.
Ooh. Anyway, we're off topic again. Well, we're kind of on topic. It's one of those tricky ones, isn't it? Is, if anything, we've got too much information now, in the sense that there's access to all of the shit that's been redrafted from the same kind of half a dozen texts that have kind of, you know, been regurgitated left, right, and centre, to the point that you're kind of like, okay, well, try and go and read the original. Like, how many younger folk, shall we say, that we meet have actually read in great depth Agrippa, for example?
How many old folk have you met that have
I suppose
read that though? Let's be fair. I mean, we're starting.
It is a hard read.
We're starting to sound old. I don't want to sound this old, moaning at the younger generation because they got it easier than us. I don't want to be that sort of person. I
don't see it as easier. If anything, in some ways, I'm kind of arguing against it, which is that it's not easier because there's more shit. Whereas like back in the day before us, when people just went to a local library and just found what they could and then had to go find secret occult shops to bookshops in order to find pieces, at least when you knew you'd got hold of a text, that it was going to be a decent text. Whereas now you can just go down to Waterstones, see an entire section of the same shit just repackaged over and over again along the same shelf. Like there's just, 30 of the same damn thing, just with a different voice, a different narrator, shall we say, of he's just telling the story slightly differently. Sorry, I'm partly ranting because we've just done that a session with Lady Poison, and obviously with the lag between me and you, it was kind of like I had to hold it all in. So now you're getting it all back. Sorry, Fausty fans.
I get what you're saying, because if you think about some of the older books, you'd be thinking you'd be bumping into, or on a shelf, you'd be finding Paul Hewson's Master in Witchcraft, serious book.
Yeah.
Nowadays, you look at a shelf with witchcraft books on it, it'll be some bollocks with a pentagram on it. And
next to the Crooked Path.
Next to the Crooked Path by Keldon. It'll
and
be
something
in the
by Tatiana.
It'll be in the works for £1 or £3 if it's a hardback. Yeah. And it will say something along the lines of, get a glass of water and stick it in the windowsill on a full moon overnight, and then you've got magical water, and then go and do this with it. And there is no serious work. So I get what you mean, because the thing is, that's the danger I think that you've picked up on, is the fact that, okay, I can understand this looks a bit crap. I'll go and buy another book and see what that says. It says the same thing. You buy another book. 10 books later, you then start to think, all this witchcraft's a load of bollocks. When actually, all of the authors are regurgitating a load of bollocks, copy and paste. And yeah, you're right. A lot of it comes from that publishing company with their crescent moon. Don't ever buy it from that publishing
company. Don't buy anything from them. With a Welsh-sounding name.
Is that con artistry? Is it thievery? What is that? If you put out a really
I think that's just fad bullshit. That's kind of jumping on the bandwagon, isn't it? And not actually doing any research to actually produce the next book. You've read 5 books, heard they've all got the same thing in. So you go, oh, okay, well, these are popular, I'll produce another one. Like almost like those, not to go smutty again, but the Mills and Boons, that kind of, here's 200 books that you can buy at, one a week for the next 10 years. And, if you buy them all now without reading any of them, you get these pink champagne flutes. I think that was what the offer was, something like that. Back in the 90s, where you'd got, all these romantic novels, one after another. You assume they've all got the same sort of theme. You may have flicked through a friend's one once, and then you've committed yourself to an entire library of them. And to a certain extent, you kind of almost goes a little bit more like Reader's Digest, buying things from that particular, I'm just going to say it, Llewellyn. You've got that same thing of kind of, here's the next encyclopedia and the next encyclopedia that doesn't give any depth, but just kind of regurgitates a set of facts, or and I'm obviously talking about correspondences and such. And this sounds like I'm going off on a complete rant tangent, but it's not. It's about this con artistry of just kind of, that's how watered down it is. And obviously, to quote, they won't hear it till tomorrow, but Lady Poison, and kind of go, well, actually, it does keep us safe in a post-repeal of the Witchcraft Act kind of situation, where we kind of want people to a certain extent to not take witchcraft seriously, because if they start to take it seriously, we're a threat again. And we know what happened last time that was the thing. Obviously, the threat wasn't really witchcraft. The threat was women actually speaking their minds. But, same thing, different brush. Is that kind of risk of, bringing back the burning times, which none of us really want. But at the same time, I still worry, which is why I asked the questions of I went to call her Doctor Poison. Then that maybe that's a new version of her. She have a
Dr.
new alter
Poison.
ego, Doctor Poison. I like that.
The alter ego
What
can
would you,
have an alter ego.
yeah, Lady Poison PhD. Like, you
Ooh.
know,
We got to find something that PhD stands for. Psychedelic,
herbal
herbal,
deductions,
decoctions.
decoctions. There you go.
Psychedelic herbal decoctions. Lady Poison PhD.
There you go. Hashtag it, and then there you go.
Do
Done.
people on Fausty Witches know who Lady Poison is, though? That's the thing.
Oh, I don't know. If we talked about Lady Poison on here,
Because
we must
Lady
have done.
Poison certainly isn't a fake. Because if we're talking fakes, there are a lot of fake witches and gurus and teachers out there. But our friend Lady Poison's a legit witch. And when you spot a legit witch, you know they're a legit witch.
Yeah.
So, you know, I've met a lot of witches and the like. Bumped into them at both moots and occult conferences, festivals, that kind of thing, and then it psychic fairs and the like. And you can always feel and see who's a proper practitioner and who's, I don't know what you'd say, either a fantasist or someone that is just kind of in it for the aesthetic, I suppose.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing. I've seen the magic ooze from someone. It oozes some, you know, like a perfume. It just comes out of them. It's easy to spot, and it's very difficult to hide as well. Even if you try to hide it, it does take a lot to hide, and you might be able to do it from mundanes, but it's difficult to do from other practitioners.
Yeah. Do you not find the same with psychics though? Which I'm hoping that's what Jolene's comment with it was just on just. There are some bad ones out there. Is that kind of the same with that? The kind of to stick with the charlatans, etc. Of the they know a cold reading and stuff like that too, or kind of really wordy explanations that don't give any information are just kind of playing on those kind of same sets of tropes that people use in kind of cold reading, etc. Was it Darren Brown that did a similar thing from a psychological point of view in a couple of his shows in the early days, where he showed how cold reading worked?
Well, Darren Brown in the early days was really interesting because he used actual occult principles and magical techniques. And then it was the same format of the show, and he did quite a lot of them, and they worked out really rather well. But it was all the same thing. He'd do something, and it would be quite cool and mysterious and interesting, and people would be gobsmacked. And then he'd say, "Yeah, science understands this," but he doesn't then explain it. He just like leaves it at that. It'll be a case of he did this one, I think was possession or seance or something like that, and someone was possessed and they were proper, going crazy, and he just said, "Oh, this is just a psychological phenomena," is what he says. It's a psychological phenomena.
Yeah.
You kind of think, okay, to a certain extent. And then he did this one. My favorite episode of that series was he did this experiment with a lucky dog statue, and he just put a load of camera crews pretending to film a documentary, and they were asking people about, do you know much about the lucky dog? And people would started spreading rumors about this lucky dog. If you pet it, it's a statue in a park. If you pet it, it will grant you luck. And then what happened was he did experiments, and people that were petting it were genuinely more lucky. Like he took them to amusement arcade and they actually won on the slot machines and stuff.
Yeah.
And that kind of thing. And it was all like, okay, so you're saying that this doesn't work, and then it's kind of demonstrated that it is working. You're just saying that, oh, it's above average, success rate. And it's kind of like, yes, but at the same time, you're not an occultist and you don't understand this. You can literally make this a lot more efficient, and we can understand the mechanisms of how this works, because basically like egregore, super basic egregore creation. But what was really cool about that episode is he got this psychic, Sally Morgan, who used to be on the telly, and
that's the name I was trying to reach for that I couldn't get.
And he said, "Oh, what do you think about this
Psychic
statue?"
Sally.
She's like, Oh, there's an energy here. There's a graveyard over there. I think it's the spirit of someone in that graveyard that's here. And then you can see like Darren Brown's on the camera, like giggling. And you're like, well,
Yeah.
there we go. That explains a lot. I've got a question, right? Why is it, out of all of the good psychics that we know, why is it that most of, or pretty much all of, I don't know if it's exclusively, but I'm going to pretty much say that 80 to 90% of the fake psychics slash shit psychics end up on television?
Yeah. But is that not because it's what they want to show on television? So it is that kind of love, luck, marriage, all those kind of bits that don't interest us. And those are sorts of psychics that are the kind of ten a penny that all talk about, love life, work, success, marriage, all those sorts of things are all very gimmicky, and it fits the trope that you've already got of the
It's a
kind of,
show. It's definitely all about the showmanship, isn't it?
yeah, it's kind of Mystic Meg and
Yeah,
the
yeah.
sun, that sort
Oh, I
of
did love Mystic
what
Meg.
an
She was brilliant.
astrologist. Do you know she's still going? As in, like, her photograph is still going in the sun. I couldn't believe it the other day because
She's
I
got
was like,
columns,
how?
Should she do horoscopes or
So
something?
she's still got. They still use her face for the
Yeah.
column, and I'm just kind of
I
like,
think it's
she's
because they.
probably
I
dead
think.
by now.
Well, I think it's probably because they would have created a brand, and Mystic Meg was a brand, and then the company owned the brand, so they can use her likeness normally.
Yeah.
But no, that was that was one of those things. Is quite amusing that the things that go on television is the fake stuff, but then I don't know whether that's just general consumerism because that's what the market is. I think that's what people want. You
Yeah,
know.
it's like, well, it's the same with paranormal investigation, isn't it? You watch some of these most haunted kind of situations where they're clearly, and obviously they're the ones on the big channels, like the like Living and stuff back in the day. I don't even know what Living's called now, but back in the 90s,
Is
where
it
they
reality? Really? Is
something
it
like
really, or are they changing their name?
really,
It's the
so
one
I
channel that
don't know.
keeps changing its name every couple of years, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so like I just love the irony of most haunted kind type shows that were all on a show called Live, a channel called Living. Used to intrigue me quite how
Yeah.
many dead people shows they had, but kind of like you said, it's down to that. It's the reality is not spicy enough, so they then have to spice it up. And going back to kind of the spiritualists and that kind of movement at the beginning, with the kind of fake ectoplasm and those sorts of things in the kind of Victorian period, and messing with photographs in order to get things like that happening, or like double exposure of fantastic work. Some of them are brilliant, um, but but to go back, because there was a point you started to make earlier that I kind of want to go back on, where we were talking about Psychic Sally and Derek Acora, Darren Brown.
Right.
In that moment where you just kind of go in, you know, in that moment you have got what Darren Brown has done there is created a mini egregore, and actually the bit that we have an issue with is not that she's Psychic Sally was probably most definitely psychic or had psychic ability, had unlocked
You've got
psychic
a very
ability, but
unsophisticated palette.
no palette, which
Yeah.
means yes, she could sense there was energy there, and
Can't
she
tell
then
what it
filled
is.
in the blanks with her knowledge, going, "Oh well,
Yeah.
I'm looking around. Oh, there's a graveyard over there, so the two must be connected." And it's kind of like, no, if you had the palette to allow you to realize that yes, there's energy there, but it's artificial, and not knowing the difference between something that is from a living person. And I find that's the same with a lot of clairvoyants that I see on the circuit, that have that, they have access to knowledge, but they have no way of discerning where it's coming from. And therefore they struggle, they struggle without able to explain themselves when it comes to someone like ourselves, I guess, who, you know, want them to give us more information or a different kind of information, and they're not
Ideally, just
capable of
useful
doing it.
information. I mean, but they're not magical practitioners, are they? So they're limited in
No,
experience. So
no.
they're not going to develop a palate. They're normally people that have got a certain amount of psychic ability naturally switched on. They never develop it any further, and they lack a lot of control over it. And then you get some courses which are taught where people are taught to be psychic and the like, and that's all they teach. Is they teach a certain amount of psychic ability, and even then they don't go very far with it, you know. But at the same time, it's difficult, isn't it? Because such things, would you be that comfortable with a Hogwarts on the end of every street that was a fairly good
No,
one, you know?
I'm not even totally comfortable with some of the institutes that they build. You know, that kind of, to a certain extent, I going back to what we said before, I like the fact in some ways that there are all these idiots and really bad books out there, on the basis that it just kind of allows a kind of, you know, smoke and mirrors arrangement for, you know, us to actually go and, you know, again, sorry to kind of bring up it again, but from what you and Lady Poison were talking about earlier, about obviously at your moot yesterday and reading between the lines, of that when you get practitioners of a certain level, you can have those conversations in a coffee shop because nobody would know what you were talking about, because you have that mutually exclusive language that you share. And I think it's the same in any specialism, whether or not it's a, you know, a craft one or electrician, you know, or any of those kind of varieties. There is that kind of language that is developed for, you're used to having to speak in code. Normally around a client is I think where most of that comes from, is knowing that you want to say something specific, but you don't want the client or the person that's around you to know what you're talking about. And so, you know, you have all these codes for these, and I don't want to lose that. I think what you know bothers me is more that I worry that there isn't any practitioners out there because I'm not seeing enough of them. And partly I don't know if, you know, I think we're finding more and more because people are finding us now that we're out here. You know, not just on this channel, but obviously Thoth TV and the other things that we do on Facebook. But you know, I do worry sometimes that that's not. Are we doing enough
There's
in
nothing
order
to
to?
help what they call the advanced beginner, is there? There's nothing out there to help
No.
those people unless they're lucky enough to find someone. And let's be fair, keeping it real, there's a good chance that they could find someone that's legit that would take advantage of them, you know.
Yeah.
So it's difficult enough finding a legit magical practitioner, right? But then to think about the amount of magical practitioners that are out there, even if you did find one, whether they're ethical or whether they're going to take advantage of you, that's another kettle of fish.
Well, let's face it, how many people have we seen at these moots up and down the country where you just find these kind of slightly shady characters who take some of the young ones, and I don't mean young as in age, I mean young as in not so far down the path, you know, take them under their wing, and then just, you know, proper Sith Lord kind of situation
when they burn out and break.
So, you know, and I don't know. I kind of feel like if anyone's going to hit mainstream in a comfortable way and not be scary, will be the psychics. I feel like that is a kind of safe way.
They are the least scary.
So no, I don't mean it like that. I mean, as in it's close enough to science from a psychological point of view, thinking about how what we don't know about the brain, etc., etc. you know, you could get away with having that in the mainstream. I don't think witchcraft will ever be there, or at least real witchcraft really won't ever be there. But I think actually there's a way there for psychics to really, you know, make a big thing about that. But it's only going to happen when they stop people, you know, reading palms and telling people about their love lives. You know, I suppose for us, it's a case of, because when we make comments, particularly on kind of the No Holds Barred podcast, where we kind of go, I don't care about your love life. It's one life. Really, are you going to think a little bit further than who you're going to meet next week in a coffee shop? Like, you know, to actually looking at the grander scheme of things, which, you know, at the end of the day, not everybody needs to do that. If, you know, if everybody was doing it, would it, you know, stop being an interesting subject? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how you feel about it, but I sit on the fence with that one.
It's like with anything, if it becomes common and everyday, it's no different than health and fitness and lifestyle, right? There's always going to be people that are entering in the Olympics and an Olympic standard and breaking records and doing something elite. But what is the general everyday schmuck? What is their level? Because if you're talking like what we try to do is to up the pleb level of magical practice, we're trying to encourage people, because we're not really upping it to places that it's never been before. We're getting it back up to the level it used to be at, because everyday plebs these days know less about magic than everyday plebs from, you know, before the medieval period,
before they could read and write.
Yeah.
That's what's scary, is that, you know, humanity at this point has the skills to read and write and create computers, and all sorts of tech to take us to other parts of the solar system, but actually fail to understand basic, you know, metaphysics. So I don't know. I don't know. I think you're right. I think you'd always have, but
this at the moment, because we've been talking and that. Have they got any questions today? Either magical, obviously, feel free to ask questions in the comments. It doesn't have to be on charlatans and the like. We can answer questions about general magic, I'm sure. But if there's anything you're interested in having a discussion about, then let us know in the comments.
We can always go off on random tangents. You know, that's what we do best.
We love a random tangent, definitely.
We do. So, yeah. So, what else had you in mind when you named this week, Liam?
Well, I'm thinking there's the fakes out there that are trying to teach. So the people that you say, whether, because this is the thing, I think about this in the same thing, right? So you've got these Center of Excellence diplomas in witchcraft that are a crock of shit, right? They won't teach you witchcraft. They're a crock of shit. They're a waste of your 20 quid that's been reduced from 200 down to 20 quid. It's still a fucking crock of shit. It won't teach witchcraft. You've got the books out there that I see as just as bad, like shit witchcraft books that are copy and paste. I see as just as bad. I still think it's a con artistry, trying to pry money out of people's hands, delivering a crap service. Because I liken it to, you know, if you go and you get McDonald's, you know that's unhealthy, you know that's crap, right? Everyone knows that. No one's really falling for that. If you go to a nice expensive restaurant but get served a bunch of crap, you'd be in uproar, you'd be angry. I'm not paying for this. This is crap. You'd send it back, right? Gordon Ramsay certainly would. But why is it that we stand for crap knowledge? Like, I know a lot of people that will say, yeah, that book's a load of crap, but they're not in uproar about it because they expect, oh, well, most of these books out there are a load of crap. I stopped reading witchcraft books because there aren't any good ones, you know, sort of thing. And then, you know, the people are willing to just put up with that And I think that
Yeah.
that's really, really, really sad. I mean, I've called out many a practitioner over my career, as you know, and accused them of being shit and accused them of selling shit. And I don't have a problem with it. Some people don't like that. Some people moan at that, say I'm a bad person, I'm nasty. But I'm giving my opinion as a magical practitioner, looking at someone that's supposed to be teaching someone that's vulnerable. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Is that they're teaching someone that's vulnerable. They're teaching someone that doesn't know any better. And I don't like it. And I think it's con artistry. And then you've got the
comes
village,
down
the psychic at the village fair, you know, that comes and she might read your tarot or read your palm or something like that and tell you a load of bollocks. Well, that's bollocks. But at the same time, which is worse? Is it
dodgy books? And the reason I go straight to that one, and it's why it's not a difficult difficult answer for me, is the fact that when you go and see a psychic and you spend a fiver to get them to read your palm or whatever, you're just buying a service. Whereas actually, when it comes to purchasing a book that is designed in theory to open you up to newer worlds, that part is actually creating a target for you. So, the second that you start to kind of go down that path, you are lighting up. It's switching on a light bulb that says, oh, I'm dabbling here. And therefore entities around you can all of a sudden see you. You stop being mundane entirely. And in that moment, you're opening up to an opportunity for you to be, taken advantage of. And whether that's by entities on other sides of the veil, or if it's down to the fact that actually it's other practitioners going, oh, maybe that person is able to manipulate energy. Let's go see what I can do. Oh, we got a question. One from Michelle says, "What do you think about a new person studying a specific magical system as opposed to learning on the fly or experimenting?"
So my perspective of a magical system or a magical tradition or whatever it is, I think the primary purpose of a magical system should be to get you to a foundation level in magic where you can stand on your own 2 feet. I think if the system doesn't do that, it's shit and is appalling. I don't like them, and I'll always call people out that try and flog that kind of thing. Oh, I'm teaching a magical system, and yet they can't even get simple spell work right within that magical system. Now, there is a general kind of, I wouldn't say consensus, but foundation magic. A foundation in magic is something that is easy for practitioners to kind of spot. There's this general consensus. You go to and put a bunch of actual magical practitioners in a room, they're all actually practicing with experience, not the showmanship, not the pretend, the real legitimate people. They'll say, well, really, you should be expected to be able to do this, 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 and this. And that's kind of foundation level for most people. Obviously, I know our foundation level, what we consider to be foundation, is a bit higher than that, as we get accused of. But there is a level that should be the minimum standard for what magical practitioners should be able to do themselves. And a magical system is a system of doing something. Now, what we tend to find, the purpose of a lot of magical systems is twofold. One, they're either designed to teach someone magic in a safe way. So is this the confines of a system? Is there's rules, there's procedures
with the safety on.
When you learn that, you can then start to go outside of that. However, there's also a lot of magical systems that have turned into religions or the magical practitioners set up in order to trap people. So whether it's like cults and things like that, where they'll try and teach you magic and they'll try and get that as the hook. Oh, I'll teach you magic. This is my super magical system. Initiate. Here you go. Now you're mine. You've got to do what I say. There's a lot of that. So, in terms of what I think of magical systems, it will depend on the magical system. You can find fault in every magical system, but it's whether that magical system does enough good in the form of getting someone to the level of being able to practice on their own and make things work so they can expand on their own. You know, it's like them old books from school. Biff and Chip. Did you ever read those, Chris? That help you learn to read. You learn your ABCs and your letter sounds and all that, and then you learn your basic words, and then those little magic key adventure books are designed to get you to a level where you can kind of read. But obviously, you aren't able to read every book and do everything, but you are able to read to the point where you can read other things and learn to use a dictionary and the like, you know? It's the foundation at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So,
interestingly, sorry to interrupt, because I will come back to that because I think it's a brilliant question. We've just had a possible charlatan pop up.
Oh, brilliant.
Do you see this one?
What does it say? I can't see on the little screen.
Bennett Sheely, would like Michelle to inbox her or add her for a reading. They've got a reading for you, Michelle. So yeah, I think we've got
a fake reading. Presumably.
More than likely. It's probably somebody after your bank account details, to be fair, Michelle. Well, I don't think I needed to tell you that, but
I think Karen, who runs the Keep On Chatting, she has said before that if there are any people on the comments that are asking people to inbox them for readings, that Keep On Chatting network does not do that. So they're not going to be legitimate. They're probably going to be con artists. And there's two reasons for this. One is that if they were a part of the Keep On Chatting group, you would know because the admins would tell you. Yeah.
Thank you, Karen.
The second is if they were a proper psychic, they would not need to go out and touting for business on YouTube and Facebook video chats because they'd be inundated with so many clients. They won't need to. It's generally the really bad ones that go after you trying to find the clients. They're no different. You've got to think of it. If that person said you want some double glazing, you'd think, that's definitely a dodgy one there, you know?
Yeah.
And that's what you've got to look at, because there are lots of good double glazing companies out there, but they don't need to go knocking on the doors because everyone knows, because of word of mouth, you know? Yeah. Don't trust them. They're a load of bollocks, you know? Don't trust them.
So sorry, I just thought
what was the name of that one? What was the name of that one? Can you put it back on?
It was Bennett Sheely.
Bennett Sheely. I'll give you a reading. You need to change your direction in life. There's a not, you put on this facade, but actually deep down, you're a miserable cunt because you're going and trying
Liam.
to con people into doing psychic readings. It's bad. I can say that because, Chris, I'm a psychic, so I know that. So that's fact, okay? That's not slander, that's fact.
No, but you did just drop the
tarot cards told me, Chris. The tarot cards told me that was fact. I got the tarot cards here, right? The tarot cards have told me. Yeah.
No.
See, the person's a miserable. They lead a miserable life because they're a bad person. They're ever such a bad person. And do you know what? That's what'll happen to you, you bad person. If I was a Christian, I'd say you were going to hell. I'm not a Christian. I'm a witch, which the difference between that means that the Christian will threaten you with a hell. The witch might actually consider, if you piss the witch off enough, build a hell and stick you in it. Now, we don't want any more con people. So you con people, you've got to go now. Don't like you con people. But yes, Chris, in my professional
Karen's already got rid of them.
Opinion, said people that are asking people to inbox them for private readings are con artists and cunts.
Oh, Liam, really? I already told you off once, honestly, and you have Chris, to do it again.
They are honestly.
No,
Chris,
no, Liam, stop it. Stop it. No.
They are. They're fakes.
They're just.
Chris. Stop coming to their defense.
That's not coming to somebody's defense. That's being rude. So stop it. You know I love that word, but not when we're live.
Okay.
Anyway, back to the topic at hand.
The cards told me.
Back to the topic at hand.
Well, you're the one that divulged. You're the one that went off to that tangent, so don't blame me. I'm just reading the cards.
I didn't get out and start doing charlatan readings on live Facebook, and then start calling people names. Anyway, back to Michelle, because Michelle's more important.
Yes, Michelle, you are important to us. What does Michelle say?
So it was just to take it back on from where you'd said. So obviously, so specific magical systems. Like I said, like Liam said, they all have their own flaws because they're all a particular perspective. And that's all that you need to remember when you're using someone else's magical system, as opposed to learning as you put it on the fly and experimenting. It means that you'll actually create your own way of working. And all that means is that you'll have your own magical system by the end of it. But obviously that's, a much more natural way. That's really not a flattering way to look at you, Liam.
Okay, I'll turn them off.
Although you are slowly disappearing.
I am slowly disappearing, aren't I? Getting dark.
Yeah.
Is that better?
That's a little bit better, actually. You lit differently.
I might move over a little bit then. Move over into the light. I've come towards the light. I see the bright light and I'm going towards it. It's still dark, isn't it? Oh well.
So all I'm going to say about that is like we say, it's down to whatever works for you at the end of the day. There are problems with every system. A system, like Liam said, is designed to get you to kind of the starting point on a journey. So it's getting you to that first space on the board where you feel equipped, that you know the rules and you know how you're going to play and you've got a strategy. And that's all that's getting you to, is that kind of first step. And I don't mean that's you have to have a magical system before you start practicing. What I mean is that it's that kind of, I've got to the top of a foundation now. I understand what I'm doing. I'm now actually going to be able to do something bigger and expand and experiment in ways that other people may not have. But it's interesting.
You're either given a magical system to start off with, or if you don't have one, then you make one yourself. But if you are given that magical system, you will eventually leave it behind and create your own anyway, because it is the basic is to start you off. So, and you can see practitioners that don't evolve. They learn a magical system. They don't go any further than that. They don't evolve the system and they stagnate. They can't get any further. You see that a lot. And that's down to the magical system, because the magical system didn't teach and isn't one of those ones where it gets you to push and change and tweak things and the like. There is a certain amount of personality as well, because some people aren't necessarily interested in pushing. Some people just want basic understanding. You don't necessarily need to be a Michelin star chef. You can just be someone that cooks a nice meal that's healthy for you and the family.
Yeah. No, I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying.
The Will Gaskins.
Yeah, Will jumped in and said, "I love backfeeding on those types of people and leaving them gifts." So I think that's why you wanted me to read out the name again, because we've been having similar things with YouTube, haven't we? Where people like to leave.
They like to leave, because on YouTube, I know that you can, if you type in the number, or the track, basically, if something's 5 minutes long and you want it to point to a specific part of the video that's 5 minutes long, you could say 4.3 minutes in, and if you write that in a comment, it comes up with a little hyperlink that will take you to that. Now what people do is they put these hyperlinks to dodgy websites. Very often it's porn websites, by the seams of it. On the Fausty YouTube channel, it seems to be that. And obviously we all know, if you're wanting a porn, you need to go on the Thoth TV OnlyFans, to get your fill, quite literally. So we're not too happy with that. So I'm compiling a little list of these people that are doing it, because they're obviously fake accounts, so they keep getting deleted, but it must be one person because it's the same website that it's linking back to. And when we've got enough of these little alter egos, we might have to do something fun with Witch Wars, maybe, with them.
Yeah.
Because they might be able to hide. They might be able to hide behind their computers and think no one can get them, but actually, there is a person at the end of that, so you can track the energy back. These anonymous people. So for the witch can get them, can't they, Chris? Get them good.
Well, at the end of the day, they forget, energy patterns is what the internet is built on. So at the end of the day, all you need to do is track back. The difference is I don't need your IP address to come and find you. That's the difference. What I did think is, while we're talking about Witch Wars, quick reminder to everyone, obviously we need your answers by the end of Friday this week, and we'll be announcing on Sunday. Yeah, because we'll be announcing it Sunday on Ask a Witch on Witchcraft Live on Sunday at 8 o'clock. We'll be talking about who's winning, or who's won rather, round 2 of Witch Wars. So that'd be good. But yeah, I kind of like the idea. When we need a target for the future, that might be an interesting game. I like that plan.
Well,
anyway, we don't have long, so what do you want to cover?
Con artists are less than human, they do say. I mean, you could pick someone to pick on, or you could pick someone that's basically asking for it by screwing people over. So, your little magical experiments, why not target someone that you think deserves it? And by deserve it, really, if you're one of those people that don't pull their sword first, remember that this person tried to con you by putting a PM me for a fake reading. So they started it. Chris, didn't they? They tried to con you, so screw them over.
I like this plan. Yeah. Anyway, people, we've got a couple of minutes left before we go. I'm sure me and Liam will come up with some randomness if you don't have any questions. But if you've got any questions that you burningly need to ask us right now, throw them at us and we'll try and get them in. If we go over, we go over. I don't think we've finished one on time yet. And we're like, is this like episode 10, 12, something like that now?
So I have a question then. Because we need to fix this problem, right? So if you do have a bad magical mentor or a bad person in the magical community, right? What's your surefire way of finding out whether they're legit or not? Because my personal opinion is that it will come more from you, the person, than from them. You're not necessarily going to be able to be smart enough to know exactly, because if you're a beginner, you're not, are you? You're not going to be smart enough to know whether they're legit or not. You're not going to know these things because you're not an expert, right? You don't have much experience. But if you have a thirst for knowledge and you really want to get somewhere, it's going to be very apparent pretty quickly if that person is unable to deliver, unable to teach, and unable to get you somewhere. So ultimately, whether they try to con you or whether they're just crap, that should highlight that. So it's really you. Don't settle. Go for top tier, top level. Keep pushing forwards. And you'll outgrow a lot of other magical practitioners. You'll outgrow mentors and the like. But don't stop. Particularly, you'll definitely outgrow books. You'll outgrow books quicker than they can be delivered next day from Amazon.
Yeah, yeah. But the thing is, at the end of the day, the process of a good mentor is that you should outgrow them, or at least the need to use them.
Definitely.
You never get rid of them, but at the same time, they stop being mentoring eventually. Otherwise, that's not a very good mentor. If you're still, after 10 years or whatever, still needing to regularly speak and ask questions that you don't feel you can answer yourself, unless you're really doing some deep exploratory work for a solid 10 years, you're still only going to have the odd thing of kind of going, how do you feel about that? In which case, it's not a question, it's that's more a discussion as peers. And I think that's the movement that you want to make you want to go from mentee to peer. And any good mentor worth their salt is going to push you until you're doing things that they aren't doing. And where that it starts to become a two-way conversation, like I say, a peer. Wait a second. Oh, I've got another question. Alex says, does this include spirit mentors? My answer would be yes, in the sense that the ones that you started off with, unless you've got an innate connection to, a super deity or a titan, as often we would call them, they were still going to reach points where you're going to outgrow what they can do with you, is probably a better way to put that, because you're not in a position to achieve in your current state in this flesh suit, be able to actually meet them head on in a way that can actually allow you to experience what they might want you to experience. Because that's when you start to, you have to wait for the follow-up on the No Holds Barred podcast to the what did we call the dimensions one the other week? I can't remember what it was called. From Lauren month.
There was 7-dimension living.
That was it.
Where we was talking about the different dimensions and moving up the trees, and we mainly talked about astral world, but we'll go further afield. That tied in quite nicely to the one we did about past life Pokeball as well.
Yeah. It's all the same kind of essence, isn't it? That kind of actually going, well, how much can you experience from this perspective? Which is where your limitation will be. It won't be a limitation on what the spirit can teach you. Oh, that's it. Lauren's jumped in. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Universe. That was it.
That was it. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Infinite, it was.
Yeah, to the Infinite.
Hashtag seventh dimension living.
Hashtag seventh dimension living. That is the limit. So the limit is actually not them and what they're capable of teaching you. It's what you're capable of actually absorbing, which is slightly different. With human mentors, you've got the fixation. You can still push pretty far, but you're going to reach a point where you can both experience that same kind of perspective. Whereas when you're using spirit mentors, depending on what level of spirit you're dealing with, there is going to reach a point where you could experience it, but you wouldn't be able to remember it when you came back to this body, is about the politest way that I could put it to you, because your human brain just couldn't comprehend the complexity.
As above, so below. If you're talking about from a beginner's perspective, working with spirits and the like, I think it's best to think of them and treat them like a human. Some humans know more than you. Some humans know more than you and are untrustworthy. Some humans are fucking idiots. So when it comes to spirits, don't necessarily assume that it knows more than you, and don't necessarily assume that it has your best interests at heart. How do you distinguish between humans to trust, then and who to learn from them in the mundane perspective from a human? Apply that perspective to when you're dealing with spirits. Does someone have a bad reputation? Is someone violent? Have violent tendencies? Have you seen that? Does someone have a PhD in a specific area of interest of yours and can teach you a lot about that area of interest? I don't know. Spirits, reputations, how they interact with you, how they interact with others, all these sorts of things. As a beginner, you have to start to navigate it, and it can be difficult. But much like in the real world, don't go to nasty places. You'll be less likely to bump into nasty things if you're not going to nasty places. And always use protection.
Any more for any more, or are we calling that quits? Do you feel like you've ticked all the boxes you wanted to tick tonight, Liam?
Oh no, I think we could go on and on and on, but we only have about an hour, so we didn't
Alex
name
says,
and shame anyone apart from that person that joined on trying a private message for reading. I can name
Alex
and shame.
says Alex says left-hand path spirits I'm generally am wary of. Too much trial by fire. The only thing I would struggle with there is the phrase,
left-hand
because
path.
spirits don't fall one way or the other. That is a very human way of looking at things, to go left or right hand path. But I get what you're trying to say.
Left-hand path and right-hand path in modern occultism is flawed. It's a bastardization of the traditional two philosophies. There are traditional two philosophies that has now been bastardized into what's considered to be the left-hand path and right-hand path. Hence why the mass majority of powerful practitioners are on what they call the middle path, because that used to be the right-hand path, but now they've made it a load of bollocks. False misinformation. Left-hand path, right-hand path, get out of that dichotomy, because if you're using that from looking at occultists, modern occultism and magic, that's a flawed way of looking at it, and it won't get you very far. Just start dealing with things like people. People are people at the end of the day. I know genuinely bad people that seem to like me and I get on well with them. I don't agree with them, their politics and the like. They are genuinely bad people, but for some reason you can get on and they are reliable people. Whether you choose to keep them in your life, who knows? There are some things that are out there that are extremely predatory and very bad and dislike humans. There are things that really like humans. There are things that don't really care about humans. There are things that are dangerous. There are things that are not dangerous. Don't reduce things into here's a category of things that are good for all people, and here's a category of spirits and the like that are baddies. The goodies and the baddies, this is not a Marvel universe. This is not a superhero film. There is no good and bad. There's just who they are, what they're about, and why. And you need to understand the why, and that will give you more information. Understanding the why. Why is that spirit doing that? Why is that spirit all about that? Why? Answer those whys. That's more practical. Don't try and cheat by trying to cobble together a list of what is considered to be good or evil, because we leave that for religion to do, and they don't do a very fucking good job of it, let's be fair.
Yes, I think that's probably a good place to stop, Liam, at the end of that rant.
Aye.
So I have no idea what we've got planned for next week, but no doubt it'll be just as thrilling. So I guess we'll, say goodnight, let Liam actually disappear into the darkness, and go home.
Goodbye and good luck. My limo needs to go now.
Limo needs to go. Driver's getting anxious.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we'll leave it there. All right. So we'll see you all next week. And if you haven't already, get putting your submission in for Witch Wars 2. You've got, 2.5 more days to get it in. And then we'll be judging at the weekend. So, which is going to be fun. There's going to be some interesting outcomes, I think. All right. So that's ta-ta for now from me and Liam. And we'll see you. Sorry, I went the wrong way then. And we'll see you next time. All right.